we're going somewhere pretty dark.
Yeah,
And pretty heartbreaking, honestly.
definitely.
I mean, we're going to do our best to try and understand the story of Guy Georges.
Right.
This is a guy whose nicknames alone, La Bestia de la Bastille, El Asesino del Este Parisino, I mean, the Beast of the Bastille and the East Parisian Killer, they echo the terror he instilled. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, those names carry so much weight, right? They
It does.
just speak to a city that was just absolutely gripped by fear back in the 90s.
yeah.
I mean, this deep dive, what we're going to do is try to navigate the events surrounding his actions and the really, like, awful impact it had on the victims and their families.
Absolutely, and you know, obviously the Wikipedia entry on Guy Georges, that's our guide here.
Right.
It gives us the facts of his life, the sequence of events, and I think our purpose here really is not to sensationalize this darkness,
Of course not.
but to bear witness to it with, you know, the utmost respect for the lives that were lost, and for the families who were forever, you know, scarred by this tragedy.
Yeah.
So let's start, I guess, at the beginning.
Okay.
The origins, you know, the early life of this man who became synonymous with such horror.
Yeah, so Guy Georges was born Guy Rampion on October 15, 1962 in Vitry-le-François, France.
Okay.
And his entry into the world was it was complicated.
Right.
You know, his father, George Cartwright, he was an African-American U.S. soldier,
Oh, wow.
and he left when Guy was really young.
Oh.
And then, you know, on top of that, he spent his childhood in and out of foster homes before he eventually moved to Paris as an adult.
It's like a recipe for instability.
Yeah, it's a really somber start, you know,
Yeah.
to a life that would inflict so much pain on others.
You know, it casts such a long shadow right from the very start. Like
Yeah.
this feeling of a life, you know, just sort of untethered, maybe desperately searching for something it could never find.
Right.
And then we come to a period that's forever etched in Parisian history with such dread.
The years from 1991 to 1997.
Right.
This is when the Bastille district became the backdrop for his most horrific crimes.
It's true.
And the fear that must have suffocated that community.
I can't imagine.
Just a constant feeling of uncertainty and dread.
I mean, the vulnerability that women in that area must have felt
Yeah.
during those years, it's hard to grasp.
Well, yeah, it's just unimaginable.
7 innocent lives were taken during that period.
Yeah.
And, you know, the Wikipedia entry, it lists each of these murders so starkly.
Yeah.
Each one just a profound loss, a future stolen.
It's so hard to even comprehend.
It names the victims and the dates they were taken from their loved ones.
Right.
You know, just a stark reminder of the individual tragedies within this larger dark period.
We have to acknowledge each of those lost lives.
We do.
Every light extinguished.
Yes.
Pascal Escarfail, she was just 19 years old.
So young.
January 24, 1991.
Yeah.
Then Catherine Rocher, 27, on January 7, 1994.
And then later that same year, November 8, Elsa Benatti, who was 22.
Yes.
And then just a little over a month later, December 9, Agnes Niekamp, who was 32.
Mm-hmm.
The following year, July 8, 1995, Helene Frinking, 27 years old.
Yeah.
Then after a truly terrifying period of quiet,
Right.
the terror returns.
Yeah.
Magali Serrati, just 19.
So, yeah.
On September 23, 1997, and finally Estelle Mag, 25, on November 16th, 1997.
7 women.
7 women.
7 unique lives,
Yeah.
each with their own hopes and dreams.
Yeah.
Just senseless.
Senselessly ended.
And the overview, you know, while it doesn't give us a lot of details, it does repeat that description over and over: rape and murder.
Oh, yeah.
And that speaks volumes about the violence inflicted on these women.
Absolutely.
The suffering they endured in their final moments.
Yeah.
The void that was left in the lives of their families and friends.
Right, and we have to remember each of those individual tragedies within this larger horrifying narrative.
Yeah, and what's so chilling is that these weren't just sudden inexplicable acts.
You know, the Wikipedia entry, it shows this really troubling pattern of violence
Yeah.
that stretches back years before the murders.
Years.
Years, a long and disturbing history of aggression.
Right?
It's like a series of escalating acts of harm that foreshadow the horrors in the Bastille.
Almost like he was building up to it.
Yeah, it's like the shadows were there all along.
Yeah.
It wasn't a sudden descent into darkness.
Right.
The darkness was always there.
So where does it begin?
Well, it starts as early as 1976
Wow.
with the attempted strangulation of his adoptive sister, Rosaline.
Oh, my God.
And then in 1978, another attempted strangulation, this time his other adoptive sister, Christiane.
So these were acts against,
Yeah.
those closest to him.
Yes. And at such a young age.
It's incredibly disturbing.
It is. It really suggests a profound and early tendency towards this extreme violence.
And the list goes on, right?
Sadly, yes.
It's just entry after entry marking a step further down this path of just cruelty. February 1979, another attempted strangulation, this time a woman named Pascal C.
Okay.
And then in May 1980, an attack on Jocelyn S. Followed later that same month by a brutal attack on Rosaline C.
The same Rosalind from before?
Yeah, his adoptive sister. And this time he stabbed her in the face.
Oh my God. This isn't just impulses anymore.
No, it's not.
This is a pattern.
A pattern of physical aggression.
Yeah.
A clear escalation in the level of harm.
And then it gets even worse.
Yes, then we see a terrifying shift.
Okay.
The violence becomes sexualized and even more lethal.
Right.
November 16th, 1981. Natalie C., 18 years old. She was raped, stabbed, and left for dead.
It's unbelievable that she survived.
It's remarkable, but it also marks this horrifying turning point in his crimes.
Okay.
And the attacks, they just keep coming.
Yeah.
June 7, 1982, Violet K., she was subjected to rape, stabbing, strangulation.
Oh my God.
But somehow she managed to escape.
Wow.
And then in February 1984, Pascal, 21 years old, she was also raped and stabbed, and she survived as well.
It's just unimaginable what these women went through.
Their survival is a testament to their strength.
Yeah.
But it also highlights just how brutal these attacks were.
And it seems like the closer we get to the 90s,
Yes.
the more frequent and severe these attacks become.
Exactly. Like it's all culminating in those devastating murders in the Bastille.
Right. Like this wasn't some sudden break.
No.
This was a slow, terrifying boil.
Yes, exactly. The assaults in those years leading up to the Bastille killings, Eleanor D. in April 1992, Annie L. in January 1994, Elizabeth O. in June 1995, Melanie B. in August 1995, and Valerie L. in October 1997.
It's just constant.
It paints this really grim picture of just continuous aggression.
Right.
Like a clear and present danger to every woman who crossed his path.
Yeah, it's like he was consumed by this darkness.
Yeah.
And it finally erupted in this series of just irreversible tragedies.
And then finally his arrest on March 26, 1998.
Yeah, it feels almost like the inevitable closing of a chapter.
It does. A wave of relief must have swept over the city.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a city held captive by fear for so long.
And the Wikipedia entry says that he admitted his guilt to the police.
He confessed.
Yeah, pivotal moment.
Yeah.
Bringing some closure to those investigations.
Right.
And beginning that long process of seeking justice.
And then came the psychological evaluations.
Right.
And they described him as a narcissistic psychopath.
Yeah, a chilling glimpse into his inner world.
Absolutely. But, we have to remember that these labels don't excuse his actions.
No, they don't diminish his responsibility for the damage he inflicted.
Right.
Not at all.
And on April 5th, 2001, the legal conclusion to this devastating story arrived.
The weight of those lost lives hanging heavy in the courtroom.
He was convicted of the murders of 7 women.
Yes.
And sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole for 22 years.
A judgment that could never bring back those precious lives.
Of course not.
But that did offer a measure of finality to the families.
Who had endured so much.
So much pain and uncertainty.
This deep dive, it's been steeped in tragedy.
It has.
The number of victims, the brutal nature of the attacks, the prolonged terror inflicted on the community.
It leaves this profound sense of sorrow.
Yeah, it really does.
And loss.
And the impact on the victims, their loved ones, the very fabric of the community.
It's immeasurable.
Immeasurable and enduring.
The scars of this kind of violence, they run deep.
Yeah.
And the absence of those young women
creates a void that can never be filled.
Their futures just extinguished.
In acts of senseless brutality.
But, confronting these histories, as painful as it is necessary.
I agree.
Not for sensationalism, not for morbid curiosity.
Right.
But to try and understand.
To understand the darkest parts of human nature.
Exactly. And the consequences that can unfold from them.
Yeah, it makes you think about the fragility of life.
It does.
And the importance of justice in the face of this kind of tragedy.
Absolutely.
So as we come to the end of this very difficult deep dive, let's just take a moment to think about the families of Pascal Escarfel, Catherine Rocher, Elsa Benatti, Agnes Niekamp, Helene Frinking, Magalise Sarati, and Estelle Magd.
Those names should never be forgotten.
Never. And let's remember the other women who survived his attacks.
Who carry the trauma with them.
Yes. What does this history tell us about the value we as a society place on each individual life?
That's a big question.
It is, and how do we grapple with the enduring reality of such profound brutality?
It's a somber question.
It is, but it's one that deserves our continued reflection.
It does.
It reminds us of just how precious life is and the enduring shadow of tragedy.
Yeah.
And on that note, we'll end it there.
Okay.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.